I think it actually needs to be reversed. The president needs to tell Kevin McCarthy that, sir, you do not have the votes and it's time to withdraw. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
One notable no vote on the historic decision to remove House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his position was Lauren Boebert, someone who had long been vocally anti-McCarthy. However, her reason for flipping might be the most obvious one imaginable. She did it for the money. On the same day that Kevin McCarthy was voted out of the speakership, Lauren Boebert posted on X saying, quote, "No for now. Now is not the time to remove the speaker, and I have decided to vote against the motion to vacate the chair." She went on to say how frustrated she had been with McCarthy's leadership, but despite that, there are more important things to worry about right now, like keeping the government funded. That on its own would be a more admirable take if I thought she actually meant it, but we all know how obstructionist Lauren Boebert actually is, especially with her being one of the key voices in the effort to impeach the president without any credible evidence.
Wherefore, President Biden, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States.
Keep in mind, Boebert only won her district in the last election by a handful of votes. Since then, her popularity has been slipping not just around the country, but within her own district. She has challengers already ready and willing to take her seat from her, so now isn't a great time for her to be alienating her most ardent supporters. The following day, there was talk of expelling Matt Gaetz from Congress because of his part in the speaker's removal, and Lauren Boebert came to her friend's aid. She said, quote, "My colleagues would be sorely mistaken to take a childish, vengeful route and try to expel my friend Matt Gaetz for standing up to failed leadership. If it feels like she's trying to play both sides, it's probably because she is." If you'll recall, back in January, Boebert, along with other members of the House Freedom Caucus, including Matt Gaetz, voted against McCarthy for Speaker 15 times. Now in October, she's flipped seemingly overnight to support McCarthy in the role of House Speaker while still standing up for Gaetz. It wasn't long before the receipts turned up. McCarthy's PAC, Protect the House 2024, reported making 2 donations to Boebert's re-election campaign, one in March and one in June, totaling nearly $100,000. Lauren Loomer broke the story, and according to her Republican sources, the donations were made in exchange for Boebert's promise to never vote for a motion to vacate. So while certain parts of this story can't be confirmed, specifically the conditions upon which Boebert accepted the donations were, in fact, made, and Boebert did make a very unexpected move when she voted against McCarthy's removal. There are a million reasons why someone could behave the way they do. There could be plenty of factors at play that we're unaware of. It's entirely possible that there's more to this story than meets the eye. It's possible things are much more complicated than they appear to be on the surface. Sometimes they are, but most of the time, they aren't. Most of the time, the simplest explanation is the right explanation. McCarthy, despite Boebert's no vote, was ultimately ousted from the speakership, but Boebert still held up her end of the alleged bargain. Considering the state of her re-election campaign and her public image, she must really need the money for her re-election campaign. The irony is that in accepting the money and the alleged terms that came with it, she's alienated the most loyal members of her base, which ultimately could very well tank her re-election to Congress come next year. The left wants nothing to do with her. Now the far right doesn't want anything to do with her, and I can't imagine that any of these middle ground Republicans are huge fans of hers either.
Madam Speaker, it's undeniable that charter schools provide students with excellent opportunities in education, which give them capabilities they can use to pursue the American dream. When students are allowed to learn in an environment that works best for them, and one that accounts for their individual proficiencies, they flourish. This is a simple fact. Those who fight tooth and nail to prop up failing public schools can rest assured that the Education and Workforce Committee will not be joining them in their future efforts. Instead, the committee will continue to promote choice.
We can pretend that Virginia Foxx is alone on this issue where she sits around and pretend that school choice is this wonderful idea to give parents control over their students' education and that the federal government has no role to play in public education. The problem with this way of thinking, the problem with all of this is just what we know. Virginia Foxx is bought and sold by private schools. Not only is she bought and sold by private schools, she is the remnant of a generation that watched and went to school during segregation.
Now, I know none of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will admit to being racist. And I don't think they are. But when you look at the rhetoric and you hear the talking points and look at the legislation that's put forward, what are we to say?
The gentleman will suspend.
Why am I bringing up segregation? Well, segregation is the root of school choice. It was a way that Southerners were allowed to legally separate their white kids from black kids in public schools. School choice was nothing but a ruse, a guise to move public funds to fund white people wanting to send their kids to segregated schools. This didn't just begin. This has been the case since school choice became an idea, since the idea that separate but equal was illegal in this country. Look what happened throughout the South and all over this country, mainly in the 11 Confederate states, where majority, percentage-wise, of white kids going to private schools off public dollars happened. And black kids, even though they say school choice allowed black parents and black kids to do better because public schools are failing, not telling you that public schools are failing because they're taking money, siphoning money from public schools to support private schools for white students, mostly white students.
The Catholic schools that you oversee, what standard do they have to meet in terms of student outcomes, student achievement, in order to keep their accreditation? That would be, I mean, every public school district that comes in will be able to tell you that.
Yeah. That's not my day-to-day job, is what I'm telling you.
You're the principal, sir?
I am.
Yeah.
So what is that standard that you have to meet to keep your accreditation?
I couldn't give you the exact score of a student. So, well, I mean, if you want exact scores, so students have to be, to be able to pass, students have to meet a passing score of 70 percentile.
So the student or the school has to be in the 70th percentile?
That's the student to be promoted to the next.
Sure, and I understand that. How many of the students have to meet that standard for you to keep your accreditation?
I don't think we have a requirement of how many students have to meet that.
Okay.
As far as I'm
I want to make sure the committee heard that.
This is the case. Look at every study. Majority of people attending white school are wealthier white people getting tax credits and school stipends, vouchers, while poor black and white and other kids, mainly black and brown kids, are forced to stay in these schools that are underfunded by these racist practices to take monies away from public schools, public monies away from public schools to support the same white people that said their kids shouldn't be in school with black and brown folk. We continue to repeat history because we continue to pretend that it's not history. School choice is nothing other than a way to keep white students in 90% or higher white schools. We are suffering in this country because we are not paying public schools or funding public schools in a way they should. Our teachers are overworked, our classrooms are overfilled, and the buildings themselves are running down because we choose this idea that we can send white kids to private schools with public funds and let black and brown kids suffer. This is absolutely ridiculous that we can allow this much money in our politics and then have politicians stand on the floor of Congress and cheer for this level of the disregard for laws that should have been handled in the 50s and actually even before then, because we never believed that separate was equal. We always knew it was for the benefit of whites, and the school choice program right now is no different. White people are benefiting well more than any other folk, especially black and brown students. No one is fooled by school choice, but plenty of people are hurt, mainly black and brown people in the South. Let's not be ridiculous and continue to pretend that school choice is choice. It's not. It's as racist as segregation. It's as racist as the separate but equal doctrine. And if we don't admit that, then we continue to condemn so many black kids as we are right now.